Rinde Jaya Rinde.
Vishnu Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavachai Namo Namaha. Vrinai Hai Tulsidevyai Priyai Hai Keshavasya Vishnu Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavachai Namo Namaha. Vrinai Hai Tulsidevyai Priyai Hai Keshavasya Vishnu Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavachai Namo Namaha. Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. We offer our most respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who just like desire trees, fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned soul. Panchakalpa Duramischa Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. That's good. No bugs? What? Oh, it has been. Hare Krishna. Okay, you're risking your spiritual life. All right. Just let me just check to see if it's coming through, all right? Hare Krishna. Such a delay. Hare Krishna. Yep. It's like a 5 minute delay on this thing. On Facebook. Yeah, it's a tremendous delay. Oh, really? Sometimes it's delayed, sometimes on time. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radhu Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Dana Palapa Iribado Dhahuti Gopi Jana Badapa Iribado Dhahuti Sodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Sodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Te Ramana Chari Yamuna Te Ramana Chari Jairanhu Madhava Kunabigare Jairanhu Madhava Kunabigare Gopi Jana Bala Gupra Giribado Dhahore Gopi Jana Balabha Giribado Dhare Yesunandana Brajadana Ranjana Yesunandana Brajadana Ranjana Yamuna Tera Vanachati Yamuna Tera Vanachati Jai Hurada Madhova Kunya Vikati Jai Radha Madhova Kunya Vikati Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravidakacharya also tell us to Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Chalana Jai Yamunamai Kijai Shimadi Lasi Devi Kijai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Kijai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol All glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda. Adi Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachari Nivashesha Shinyavadi Paschacha Deja Tarni. So today is Shiva Ratri, so I'd like to talk about Lord Shiva, some stories about Lord Shiva from Srila Prabhupada's books, and also Lord Shiva's ontological position. So Om Gana Timiranda Shah Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Meditam. You're moot. I know it's mute, but anyway. So, anyway, today we're going to talk about Lord Shiva. First, we're going to talk about Lord Shiva's ontological position. That means who he is, you know, his identity. That's basically a fancy word for saying something's identity or someone's identity. So, Lord Shiva is described in the Brahma Samhita to be compared, he is compared to yogurt that comes from milk. Now you know that you can make yogurt from milk, but you can't make milk from yogurt. And they're both nice. So that's one particular description given. In other words, Lord Shiva expands from Krishna, but he's not Vishnu Tattva, he's not God, and he's not Jiva Tattva. Some people say that he's Shiva Tattva, a special category in and of himself. But his original form from whom he expands, the Vishnu Tattva form from whom Lord Shiva expands, is called Sada Shiva in the spiritual world. That's why you hear that Advaita Charya, who is Vishnu Tattva, you have three members of the Panchatattva or Vishnu Tattva, Sri Krishna, Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, and Advaita. He's sometimes called Sada Shiva, or expansion or an incarnation of Sada Shiva. So this Sada Shiva is Vishnu Tattva. And the Shiva in this world, he is special other Tattva. And there's many different expansions of Lord Shiva that appear in this world. I mean, one of the ones that I think of most often is the one that came from Lord Brahma's forehead when Lord Brahma got angry with his four sons, the four Kumaras, because he told them to get married. They were 5 years old. I guess they had early marriage at that particular time. And they refused because they were so much immersed in Brahman realization, actually. At that time, they weren't manifesting themselves as great devotees or as the head of the Sampradaya, the Kumara Sampradaya. So they were so much immersed in Brahman realization, they said, "No, Dad." And Lord Brahma got so angry that the 11 Rudras came out of his head. And these Rudras, of course, that's the anger principle, because Lord Shiva, he's very easily angered and he's very easily pleased. He's called Ashutosh. So these Rudras threatened to destroy the universe, and as a result, there had to be created, forgive me for this expression, 11 Rudranis. Please, hope you forgive me. That's good. So 11 Rudranis had to be, and they sort of, because sometimes if a brahmachari is really agitated, you get them married, right? And anyway, that's another story. So, yeah, because so they pacified them. So that's Lord Shiva's ontological position. And actually another point is that he's the greatest Vaishnava. We mentioned before he's Ashutosh, he's easily pleased, and we'll tell some stories about that. And easily angered. But he's also the greatest Vaishnava. Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu. And why is he considered the greatest Vaishnava? Well, Vaishnava is measured according to his compassion. So compassion is not simply a, let's say, a philosophical concept, mental concept, or an emotional concept. It's something that's extremely practical. Just like we see in the case of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. His compassion was manifested by his titikshava karunika, by his tolerance and ability to risk everything for the sake of the conditioned souls. I mean, coming to the West without any visible means of support, and of course we all know the details of Srila Prabhupada's story, but just everything at, at a ripe old age, Prabhupada did everything. And so Lord Shiva, his manifestation of his compassion is that he's dealing with basically the lowest class of entity. I mean, compared to the bhutas, pisachas, that means ghosts and goblins and other people that Lord Shiva deals with, and he tries to help them become Krishna conscious. The hippies in America would be like great saintly personalities. Because these are witches, goblins, and you see what happens when someone gets ghostly haunted. They actually are crazy. I mean, and they kill themselves. I was just listening to class this morning where Prabhupada was talking about one time he was taking a train ride in India, and the person next to him opened the window, just jumped out and committed suicide. Because Prabhupada was talking to the devotees about how there's so much suicide in the Western world that they have to build nets over bridges. Here in this bridge, we don't have a net. Yeah, by the high school they have, but not this bridge right here that we have on Dimmings Mill Road. So, at least we're...
Just to keep people from throwing things onto the highway.
Oh.
Not to keep people from suicide. There are these kids who
throw things.
have actually caused some horrific damage in North Carolina, so juveniles.
That's interesting. But Prabhupada was talking about how in Berkeley, the University of California in Berkeley, they had this tower, and the kids were jumping off the tower, and then they had to actually close it or put a net there. And then also, they were talking to the Golden Gate Bridge, how they had to keep people from jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. Anyways, that's suicide. So Lord Shiva is dealing with these very, very low-class people. And one of the ways he helps them is that he looks for places for them to be born, or wombs, not places, but for them to be born. And the way he does that, he goes around at certain times of the day or night, the sanjas, not the sanja in the middle of the day, but the two sanjas, the dusk and the sunrise, that he goes around and he sees if there's anyone, anyway, who's not following regulated principles, and he puts his associates in the ladies' wombs. And that story, that's brought out in the story of Kashyapa and Diti. Kashyapa and Diti were married, of course, but Diti exhibited extreme lust, and she began to tug at Kashyapa's dhoti or dress or whatever he was doing. And Kashyapa just became overcome with lust, and he warned her beforehand, before this whole thing occurred. He said, Lord Shiva is there with his associates during this particular time of the day, and it's not auspicious. And he was so prescient, in other words, so much able to understand what was happening, that he predicted after she was impregnated what would happen, that your sons are going to be demons. But there's good news. He said first the bad news. The bad news is they're going to be killed. The good news is they're going to be killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So anyway, so that's Lord Shiva. Many wonderful stories are there in the Vedic literature, so I'm going to repeat some of the stories from the Bhagavatam and from other places. Actually, before I recite some of the stories, I wanted to read from one Vedic literature about the ontological position of Lord Shiva. And this is from one of the Vedic literatures. It's a conversation between Durga and Lord Shiva. And it really reveals who Lord Shiva is in this particular conversation. Shri Parvati said, on the summit of Mount Kailasa, Goddess Gauri asked Lord Shiva, "You are the master of the entire universe and its destroyer as well. You are respected by Brahma, Vishnu, and all the demigods and all the worlds. O master of the demigods, O great master, what is this prayer that you recite again and again? O Shiva, a great feeling of wonder and surprise is now born within me, O master of my life, O wise one. O auspicious one, please cut apart my doubt." Lord Shiva said, "O Parvati, O beloved more dear than life, you are fortunate and saintly, O girl with a beautiful face. You have asked about the most secret of all secrets. O great goddess, with a woman's curiosity you have asked again and again, what I tell you should be kept secret. It should be kept secret. It should be kept secret with great care. Give it to someone, and you may lose your spiritual perfections. Therefore, please keep this secret with great care. This is a great secret that brings the final goal of life. Remembering this prayer brings wealth, jewels, rubies, horses, elephants, and other possessions. It also brings great jubilation. I will tell this to you. O beloved, please listen carefully. Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His form is spiritual. He is never touched by matter. In order to rescue the people from the ocean of repeated birth and death, again and again he appears in the form of Lord Ranganath and the forms of countless other deities in every corner of the three worlds. The great fools of this world have no devotion for Lord Vishnu. They do not understand that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, always untouched by matter, the Supreme Lord, who is known as Narayana and Hari, and who delights his devotees, manifests his form as a coward boy to enjoy pastimes in the land of Vrindavana. Playing on a flute, he brings great happiness to Sri Radha. His incarnations, partial incarnations, and the parts of his partial incarnations are all present in the form of coward boys. That coward boy is Shri Krishna Chandra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the son of the coward Nanda. His mother is Yashoda, who is the goddess Dara, and who brings great happiness. O Queen of the demigods, requested by Brahma, the demigods, and his parents, the Supreme Personality of Godhead became the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. In this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the giver of liberation, was born on the earth. He breathed the Vedas into his flute. With his flute he spoke. In this way he was born on the earth. I meditate on him, the eternal dark splendor that is the treasure of the earth. O auspicious one, a person who worships, glorifies, or studies the dark splendor that is Lord Krishna, but does not worship, glorify, or study the fair splendor that is Radha, finds that he lives in hell. O great goddess, a person who thinks Radha and Krishna are different becomes a Brahmin murderer, a wine drinker, a thief of gold, and an outcast. He becomes contaminated with all these sins. The splendid Supreme Personality of Godhead is manifest in two forms. He is both Radha and Krishna, O great goddess. In this way, the Lord is manifest as a coward boy. When Durvasa Muni was bewildered by the rasa dance in the month of Kartika, Sri Radha asked a question to break his doubt. O Queen of the universe, then Lord Krishna explained the pure spiritual truth to Radha, Narada, and me. In Kali Yuga, all the sincere Vaishnavas learn this truth from Narada. O Queen of the demigods, please keep this secret carefully. O Queen of the demigods, this truth should not be given to a wicked person, a miser, or a person filled with pride. One who does so commits the sin of killing a Brahmana. Therefore, please keep this secret carefully. And that's something like the offense on chanting Hare Krishna, teaching the glories of the Lord to those who are faithless. Of course, as preachers and followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, things become adjusted in this Kali Yuga, so we actually risk ourselves by presenting Krishna consciousness to everyone. So, let's get on to some of the interesting stories of about Lord Shiva. So this is, first story is from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, there's once upon a time, actually this is, this story was actually asked by, not the story, but the philosophical point was asked by Parikshit Maharaj to Shukadev Goswami, and Shukadev Goswami also cited Yudhisthira Maharaj in this particular story, because Yudhisthira Maharaj had the same particular question. So the story goes as follows. Once upon a time, there was a very nice demon. His name was Vrika. And he really wanted to find out, how he could get benedictions really easily, like we mentioned before, that Lord Shiva is what? Ashutosh, easily pleased. So he didn't really want to take a lot of endeavor to get blessings or benedictions. Is that? So Narada Muni told him, Lord Shiva is easily pleased. He is Ashutosh, easily pleased, easily angered. And so Vrika, he went immediately to Kedaranath, which is Lord Shiva's abode in the Himalayas. Actually, there's a Kedaranath in Braj, too, in the mountains in Braj. And on top of the mountain, you find a Shiva Linga in a cave. Has anyone been there? Nobody's been there. Because in Braj, you actually have the original form or original aspect of every single holy place. You really don't have to go to anywhere else. People ask me sometimes, why don't you just go to the Himalayas, to Badrinath, Kedarnath? But actually in Braj, you have all these places. It's all the way in western Braj. It's really wonderful. And you're all invited to come with me in October, if you can get away. So anyway, so Kedarnath. So he went to Kedarnath, and he began to perform different austerities, and it finally ended up that he was performing the austerity of cutting the flesh from his body and offering it into the fire. Like, Swaha, Shivaya Namaha, Shivaya Namaha. And finally he decided, it's not working. I thought Lord Shiva's very easily satisfied. So he got ready to cut his head off and offer into the fire. I don't know how you would cut your head and then offer it in the fire later on, but he was getting ready to do that. And then Lord Shiva appeared and he said, I'm easily pleased. What do you want? And he said, I simply want the benediction that whoever head I touch would split into like 1,000 pieces. He would die immediately. So Lord Shiva, being very easily pleased, said to this particular demon, Tatashta, you can have it. And so the demon was thinking, well, I got to test it out. And the best way to test it out is by touching Lord Shiva's head. And he thought, also, if I touch Lord Shiva's head, that I can kill Lord Shiva and I can possess Parvati, Lord Shiva's wife. Because everyone wants Durga. Actually, people want Lakshmi, but what they get in the place of Lakshmi is Durga. And they get the threefold miseries. So he was thinking like that. And so Lord Shiva's benedictions, they work. And so this particular demon started to go towards Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva was terrified. Imagine being terrified of your own benediction. But, benedictions are benedictions. You got to stick to them. So Lord Shiva was running all over to try to get away. And finally he goes to Shvedadvipa to see Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu, understanding the situation, transforms himself into a little Shiva Brahmachari. That means the brahmachari is worshiping Lord Shiva, and he has rudraksha beads. Incidentally, when the devotees chant japa, they shouldn't chant japa on rudraksha beads. You should chant japa on tulsi mala, because rudraksha beads are meant for worshiping Lord Shiva. There's also certain types of flowers that are also meant for worshiping Lord Shiva that shouldn't be offered to Krishna. So anyway, this demon sees this Shiva brahmachari, and the Shiva brahmachari says, who is Lord Vishnu, says to not Lord Shiva, Vritrasura sees the Shiva brahmachari, and Shiva brahmachari says to Vritrasura, what are you doing? And Vritrasura explains, Lord Shiva gave me this benediction that whosever head I touch would split into 1,000 pieces, and I'm running after Lord Shiva to touch his head. And then Lord Vishnu says something really interesting and funny. He says, don't you understand? Lord Shiva's become, basically I'm paraphrasing, he's become contaminated because he got cursed by Daksha. There was this whole sacrifice where Lord Shiva did not properly respect Daksha, the Daksha Yagya in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and Daksha sort of cursed him. And so Lord Vishnu, in the form of a Shiva brahmachari, says that since that time, Lord Shiva's just been like associating with goblins and hobgoblins. I don't know what the difference is between a hobgoblin and a goblin, but anyway, they both sound pretty bad. And so he's been associating with them, and, he just lost his power. Don't waste your energy. Conserve your energy, Prabhu. And you should do something easy to test this benediction. And this demon, being bewildered by his sense of false pride, he said to Lord Vishnu, what should I do? And Lord Vishnu said, it's very easy. Just touch your own head. And if it works, then the benediction works, and you can keep chasing after Lord Shiva. Of course, obviously you wouldn't be able to. And if it doesn't work, then you were cheated by Lord Shiva. So this demon touches his head, splits into, many, many pieces, and he dies. And you all oftentimes find Lord Vishnu advising Lord Shiva, why are you giving these demons benedictions, Stop it already. But Lord Shiva is so easily pleased. He's compassionate. You may even say sentimental. It's like we sometimes talk about when we manage a temple or decide who moves in the temple, we become really sentimental. So Lord Shiva is like that too. He's very easily pleased manifestation. So in this particular part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the question was raised. Let's go back to the beginning of this particular chapter of the Bhagavatam. Like we see Lord Shiva's devotees, and Lord Shiva's engaged in material energy, they become very wealthy. And Lord Shiva is living like naked, with nothing. And then we see Lord Vishnu's devotees, well, guess what? Then they don't become wealthy. I mean, sometimes they're wealthy, but generally, they're put in a difficulty. I mean, look at the Bhagavatam, because Yudhisthira Maharaj was raising that question because of what occurred with the Pandavas. I mean, they're all devotees of Lord Vishnu, Krishna, and look what they had to go through. The house of lac, in which they were almost burned to death, Bhimsen being thrown, given poison and thrown into the lake and being saved by the Nagas. So many incidents, the gambling match. And Yudhisthira Maharaj is just thinking, what's happening, Krishna? We've been your devotees our whole lives. And Lord Shiva's devotees, they're very opulent. And of course, ultimately, the answer given in that particular chapter is the famous verse, Yashaham Anugranami, Huishe Tad Dhanam Shanahai. That for those who I especially favor, I take away everything. And so their friends, and there's more to the verse, their friends and relatives reject them. Now, oh my God, what sort of movement did I join? My friends reject me. Oh, better go back to the university. Anyway, so, no, but Krishna gives the devotee what they need to advance, but he gives the devotee also vairagya, as described by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. What is it? Vairagya Vijja Nija Bhakti Yoga Shiksharta Eka Purusha Purana Shri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dari Kripam Buddhir Yastvam Aham Prapadye. So he doesn't give you something you can't handle. Don't worry about it. But Vairagya Vidya, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to teach us this Vairagya Vidya. I mean, it's like, I'll just give a personal example. Just like this morning, I was taking a bath. I wasn't, the body was. And I was just thinking of the constituent elements of the body. You know, the skeleton, there's a skeleton inside, and it's covered by skin. And I'm thinking, it's me. It's so insane. I was having that realization as I was bathing. So that's Vairagya. Of course, the real Vairagya is to be attached to Krishna. Because then it's not simply a question of being detached from something like the Buddhists or Mayavadis. It's a question of being attached to Krishna. But then Krishna gives you all these realizations about what this body is and what the material world is and the relationships and everything, even the technology in this world that, we happen to be so attached to. So anyway, so Vairagya, so Yudhisthira is instructed by Krishna, Yashaham anagriname hurishe tadadamshanai. So I take away everything, so his friends and relatives are rejected, and then you're just absorbed in Krishna's holy names. And I'm sure many of us have experienced this when there's some difficulty. We just take shelter of Krishna's names, and we just feel, wow, thank you. Maybe in retrospect, we think, thank you for this particular lesson. So this is an important part of the Bhagavatam, this particular story. Another story is from the 10th canto, is the Manasura story, which shows Vishnu's superiority to Lord Shiva. So there's the great-grandson of Prahlad Maharaj named Manasura, and Lord Shiva gave him 1,000 arms. Can you imagine that? 1,000 arms? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Can't imagine it. Anyway, it's 1,000 arms. And what he did, he was the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj, his great-grandson, son of Bali. And he pleased Lord Shiva because he was great with the drum. That's described in the Bhagavatam. You only have 2 arms. Can you imagine what you could do with 1,000 arms? I mean, I guess you'd have to have 500 mardangas or something like that. You couldn't play it on them. So he had 1,000 arms, and he was playing on drums as Lord Shiva danced. And Lord Shiva was so pleased that he said, Lord Shiva said, whatever you want, I'll give you. And Banasura complained, there's no one for me to fight with. I got these 10,000 arms, or 1,000 arms, sorry. I increased the number of arms. Just a little hyperbole here. So I have these 1,000 arms, and no one will fight with me. I can't find anyone. And Shiva gets really angry at this point. You see Ashutosh right there in this particular, Shiva's pleased because you play the drum nicely, because Kunja Bihari plays the drum nicely. And then because this fool asked for a stupid benediction, Lord Shiva gets angry and says, you're going to be defeated. And he actually gets angry. He gets not angry, he gets happy with this. Wow, I'm going to get a chance to fight with, chivalrous like that. And then you get into the whole story of the Usha and Aniruddha story. Usha is his daughter. And Usha has this dream, and she's been embraced by this swarthy gentleman. Swarthy? You don't know what that means anyway. So you can look it up later. She's embraced by this swarthy person, and she's just like in ecstasy. She consults her friend Chitraleka. Chitraleka shows her, goes on the internet and shows her, no, not really, but draws pictures of all the eligible men in the universe, and finally they see it's Aniruddha, and Chitraleka is sent and kidnaps Aniruddha, brings Aniruddha back to Usha, and they're having a good time. They're discovered by Banasura, and then Banasura captures Aniruddha, and after 4 months, the Yadus attack to try to bring Aniruddha back. There's Krishna and Balaram on one side, and then Kartikeya, who's Lord Shiva's son, versus Krishna and Balaram. Such an interesting story. And, there's fighting back and forth. At one particular point, it appears that Krishna is winning. Of course, Krishna ultimately does win. And then just to keep him from attacking Banasura, this naked goddess appears before him. And Krishna's not interested in looking at naked ladies. He just looks the other way, and Banasura escapes, or Lord Shiva escapes. And then there's the fight between the Shiva Dwara and the Vishnu Dwara. That means that Lord Shiva's weapon, which is heat, and the Vishnu Dwara at this particular point, which is really cooling, extinguishes the heat. And then the Vishnu Dwara wins, and the Shiva Dwara takes shelter. So Lord Shiva's primary weapon takes shelter at Krishna's lotus feet, which is really interesting. And then Krishna ends up cutting off not all the hands, but up to there. He leaves 4 hands on Banasura. And Lord Shiva actually is intervening to save Banasura's life. And Krishna doesn't kill Banasura anyway, because Banasura is the great-grandson of Prahlad Maharaj, and Krishna has said that, in the form of Lord Nrsimhadev, that I'm not going to kill any of your descendants. So Banasura has 4 arms, he's left with 4 arms, and they live happily ever after, Usha and Aniruddha. That's another story of Lord Shiva. It just shows his position, as Ashutosh. And I think, not much time. I have so many stories here. And another story that illustrates Lord Shiva's compassion is the story of the churning of the milk ocean. So there's this churning of the milk ocean. So many nice things come out of the milk ocean. Lakshmi comes out, gets married to Lord Vishnu. And, ultimately at the end, there's the Amrit that comes out that's taken by the demigods, taken by the demons, and then, anyway, that's another story. And so, but there's this poison, this like river of poison that pours out of the churning the milk ocean. Because, whenever you get something, there's always a good portion and a bad portion. Like anything in this world, it's like that. You got to take the good with the bad. When you get an orange, you got the peel. And, even with this body, it eats, and you enjoy eating, but it does a lot of things that aren't so nice either. So anyway, so the poison comes out, threatens the whole universe, and everybody gets upset, and they pray to Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva agrees to drink this poison, to absorb the poison. Because of that, he becomes a blue-throated one. It's called Nilakanta. Nilakanta means blue throat, for protection. And it's described that in this chapter of the Bhagavatam, it's described that when one undertakes voluntary suffering for others, this is the highest worship of the Lord. It's really interesting, that particular statement, because Lord Shiva is doing that for the sake of others. He's undertaking that voluntary suffering. Nobody likes to drink poison. So anyway, continuing with that whole story of the churning of the milk ocean, Amrit this is another story of Lord Shiva. Hopefully we have time if I do it real quickly. That at the end, they get the Amrit. The demons take the Amrit, and Krishna manifests himself as Mohini Murti to take the Amrit back from the demons, because the demons trust Mohini Murti. You know, anybody who's beautiful you trust naturally, even if they're rascals, you know. You see that, like, you know, people worship movie stars, movie actresses, even if they look good, you know, because they may be the lowest class of creature on the earth planet. So anyway, so the demons agree to share the nectar equally, but Mohini Murti doesn't have the equal concept in her mind. She gives mostly to the demigods, and some demons sneak in, like Rahu and Ketu. But that's not the reason for me telling the story. Lord Shiva, at one point, he asks Krishna, there's this in the 12th chapter of the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he goes to Vishnu and he says, I want to see this form. And Lord Vishnu says, okay. You know, there's all sorts of prayers first in this part of the Bhagavatam. And Lord Shiva, and Vishnu says, okay, and then all of a sudden, Vishnu disappears, and Lord Shiva looks around with all of his eyes, you know, and he sees this beautiful girl playing ball, you know, with, you know, parts of her body, which I'm a sannyasi, I'm not supposed to describe, that, you know, really attract him, and she's playing ball there, you know, just like men, they like, Prabhupada comments on men, they like to see women playing games like that, and just like when Devahuti was playing ball, she played on top of a palace so no men could see her, but some demigods happened to see her, and they fell off their airplanes. So anyway, so there was she was playing ball, then Lord Shiva really became enamored and ran and grabbed her by the hair, grabbed Krishna by the hair, and forcibly embraced her. And Krishna just got himself out from her embrace, started running around, and, you know, to make a long story short, because we only have 1 second, I said, ran all over the world. Lord Shiva just basically, you know, lost his seminal fluid. And of course that with Lord Shiva became gold and silver. And so it showed there the superiority of Vishnu Maya over Lord Shiva. So these are all proofs of the ontological position of Lord Shiva. Okay, on that happy note, thank you very much. All glory to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Enam Kanvandam Maravindadalayataksham Varhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandar Agom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobham. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Andani Asa Sakale Priya Priti Manti Vasyam Divam Vikayanti Chiram Gaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govinda Tamaham Bhajami.
Kalagira. Vakatjana Sangana Nache Maria Habana Iya Vakatjana Sangana Nache Maria Habana Madhura Puriya Sapapashi Manjaya Jagat Rajane Keha Kande Keha Che Keha Mate Mane Mane Panchavatana Dara Dedara Prema Rasagana Roro Kamalaspana Nachia Bale Uno Bole Haribolo Sahasranana Paramasuke Hari Hari Bali Gaya Dhamma Prabhave Matila Vishva Nama Raksasa Begaya Krishna Nama Rasana Spuri Puralahama Rasa Amarupa Padeya Jaye Iha Wakati Vinodasa Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Golokin Anurada, Golokin Anurada. Jaya Radha, Golokin Anurada, Golokin Anurada. Jaya Radha, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Radhe, Jaya 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 Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvatincharya, also Tara Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace. Abhaya Chananada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anandakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Siddharidas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha, Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopikopatnath, Shyam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Mathuradam Ki Jai, Jagannath Swami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Shivati Dalasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol, all glories the assembled devotees, 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 all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Stay Saswat Devi, Gormani Pachani Nivasesas, Nivadi Vashata Dejantarni. Narada Muni, the great soul, plays a string instrument called a Bina, vibrating the sound, Radhika Ramana, another name for Krishna. As soon as he strikes the strings, all the devotees begin resounding, making a very beautiful vibration. Accompanied by the stringed instrument, the singing seems like a shower of nectar. All the devotees dance in ecstasy to the fullest extent of their satisfaction. While dancing, they appear madly intoxicated with ecstasy as if drinking the beverage Madhuri Pura. Some of them cry, some of them dance, and some of them, although unable to dance publicly, dance within their hearts. Lord Shiva, who has 5 heads, embraces Narada Muni and begins talking in an ecstatic voice. And seeing Lord Shiva dancing with Narada, Lord Brahma, whose seat is the lotus flower, also joins, saying, all of you kindly chant, Haribol, Haribol. The king of heaven, Indra, who has thousands of eyes, also gradually joins with great satisfaction and begins dancing and chanting, Haribol, Haribol. In this way, by the influence of the holy name of God, the whole universe becomes ecstatic. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, when the universe becomes ecstatic, my desire is satisfied. I therefore pray unto the lotus feet of Rupa Goswami that this chanting of Harinam may go on nicely like this. Jai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Okay. Okay, Shikshashtika.